What's up, everyone? It's Yosef, and today we need to talk about California. The Golden State is in turmoil. Streets from San Diego to Sacramento are packed with protesters, signs, and chants. This isn't just another weekend protest. It's a massive, multi-layered movement fueled by political decisions, social outrage, and a sense that basic rights are under attack. People are fed up, organized, and refusing to back down. So what's really driving thousands to the streets? Today, we're breaking down the 7 core reasons, the catalysts behind California's unstoppable protest movement. We'll look at the policies, the people, and the power plays that brought us here. This is your deep dive into one of the biggest social upheavals in recent American history. Let's cut through the noise and get to the heart of what's happening. Let's dive in. The spark? Aggressive ICE raids across Los Angeles. These weren't routine. They were coordinated, public, and designed to send a message. Imagine starting your day at work, only to have agents in tactical gear storm in, zip-tie coworkers, and load them into vans. This was reality for hundreds in LA. Not just a policy, but a personal crisis. The raids targeted the economic heart of immigrant communities, creating maximum fear and disruption. For every person detained, families were left in panic, kids waiting for parents who wouldn't come home. Videos of these raids went viral, putting a human face on the issue. No longer just illegal immigration, but Maria the seamstress, Carlos the cook. The message was clear. No one is safe, not even in a sanctuary state. Instead of intimidating, the raids galvanized outrage and solidarity. Vigils appeared outside detention centers, legal aid groups were flooded, and communities organized overnight. The raids were meant to chill, but they ignited a fire. People who'd never protested before joined in, seeing families torn apart and neighbors targeted. The outrage crossed ethnic and economic lines, uniting Californians against what they saw as a direct attack on their values. The federal government's move wasn't just enforcement, it was a challenge to California's identity. The result? A wave of anger and unity that became the foundation for everything that followed. These weren't just raids, they were a call to arms, and California answered loudly. The ICE raids didn't just disrupt lives, they set the stage for a movement. The state's response was immediate and massive. This was the first domino, and it didn't stop here. The raids made the crisis personal for millions. Suddenly, the debate wasn't abstract. It was about real people, real families, and real fear. The public nature of the raids forced everyone to pick a side. The movement gained momentum, fueled by outrage and a sense of injustice. The ICE raids were the match that lit California's firestorm, and the flames are still burning. This was just the beginning. The next steps would escalate the conflict even further. The state was ready to fight back, and the world was watching. The shock of the raids quickly escalated with talk of mass deportation. This wasn't about a few high-profile arrests anymore, it was about millions. The federal government shifted from targeting criminals to threatening anyone without documentation. For California, home to 2 million undocumented immigrants, this was an existential threat. The message sanctuary policies wouldn't protect anyone. The rhetoric turned dehumanizing. People labeled as illegals, invaders. Fear spread. Families worried every knot could mean separation. The threat wasn't just to immigrants, it was to entire communities, businesses, and the state's economy. Undocumented workers are vital to agriculture, construction, and service industries. Mass deportation would devastate California's workforce and economy. Even business leaders, usually silent, started to speak out. The hypocrisy was clear. Essential workers during the pandemic were now being targeted for removal. The policy united a broad coalition, immigrants, business owners, neighbors, against what they saw as a cruel, self-destructive move. The federal government hoped to scare California into submission. Instead, it created a unified front of resistance. The threat of mass deportation turned fear into action. It wasn't just an immigrant issue anymore. It was about the future of the state. The movement grew, fueled by a sense of betrayal and urgency. The stakes were higher than ever. California was ready to fight for its people and its identity. The mass deportation playbook backfired, strengthening the movement. The crisis had become a rallying point for millions. The opposition was now broader, louder, and more determined. The fight was just beginning, and California wasn't backing down. The next escalation? A constitutional clash between California and the federal government. President Trump federalized California's National Guard. putting them under Washington's control for immigration enforcement. This was unprecedented, a direct challenge to the governor's authority and state sovereignty. Troops on California streets, Humvees at checkpoints, it looked like a military occupation. The optics were shocking, radicalizing even those who'd stayed on the sidelines. The governor condemned the move as unconstitutional, calling it a power grab. The fight wasn't just about policy anymore. It was about who governs California. The presence of troops made the conflict real, not just legal theory. National Guard members faced a crisis of conscience, ordered to act against their own communities. The move was meant to intimidate, but it backfired. Protesters now had a powerful rallying cry, "Get the troops out!" The image of unarmed protesters facing armed soldiers became iconic. The stakes shifted from immigration to democracy itself. The federal government's show of force only made the protesters look more righteous and courageous. The constitutional showdown elevated the movement, drawing comparisons to historic civil rights battles. Instead of crushing dissent, the federal action fueled it. The fight was now about the soul of California and America. The movement gained new urgency and legitimacy. The world was watching as California stood its ground. The constitutional crisis became a turning point. The protesters weren't just resisting policy, they were defending democracy. With troops on the ground, the movement needed more than anger. It needed organization. Enter California's labor unions. The arrest of union leaders during protests was a turning point. Unions like SEIU and Teamsters mobilized, providing resources, legal aid, and logistics. Union halls became organizing hubs, and marches grew in size and discipline. The fight for immigrant rights became a fight for all workers. Unions framed ICE raids as union-busting tactics, meant to intimidate and suppress. Diverse groups, farm workers, teachers, electricians, marched together. The movement became a broad working-class coalition. Unions brought experience in protest and civil disobedience, keeping momentum alive. The arrest of leaders backfired, giving the movement a powerful new backbone. Organized labor transformed scattered protests into a strategic campaign. Solidarity became the movement's engine. At the heart of the movement was a simple, powerful message: we are human. This slogan was everywhere, on banners, signs, and city walls in English and Spanish. It was a direct response to dehumanizing rhetoric and policies. The movement demanded three things: end arbitrary arrests, stop mass deportations, and uphold human dignity. These demands gave the protests focus and unity. The message was clear. This wasn't just about policy, but about respect and basic rights. The slogan forced everyone to confront the moral core of the issue. The movement's clarity made it easy for new supporters to join. "We are human" was both a rallying cry and a demand for change. The emotional appeal and practical demands worked together, sustaining momentum. The movement was about more than resistance. It was about humanity. The message resonated far beyond California. It became the soul of the struggle. The movement's energy came from its youth. Students at UCLA, USC, and beyond turned campuses into organizing hubs. Walkouts, teach-ins, and legal clinics sprang up overnight. Young people saw the crisis as personal, affecting friends, classmates, and families. They brought tech skills, organizing power, and fearless passion. Diverse student groups united, connecting immigrant rights to broader fights against racism and inequality. Their activism was inclusive, intersectional, and relentless. Youth-led protests became the movement's heartbeat. Their idealism re-energized older activists and kept the momentum alive. The crisis politicized a generation, teaching them to organize and fight for justice. These students are the future leaders of California. Their political consciousness is being forged in the struggle. The youth made the movement unstoppable. The final ingredient? Social media. Platforms like TikTok and Instagram turned local protests into global events. Viral videos of raids and protests created instant outrage and solidarity. Live streams exposed misconduct and held authorities accountable. Hashtags like #CaliforniaResists became rallying points. Social media was the movement's main organizing tool, spreading info, mobilizing crowds, and coordinating rapid responses. The digital feedback loop fueled ever larger protests. The movement was agile, responsive, and impossible to ignore. Social media democratized the narrative, letting protesters tell their own story. The world couldn't look away. The digital and physical streets worked together. Social media didn't just report the movement, it powered it. The fight was everywhere, all at once. So there you have it, 7 reasons behind California's unstoppable protests. It's not just chaos, it's a fight for identity, democracy, and human dignity. The movement is resilient, organized, and still evolving. The outcome is uncertain, but the people aren't giving up. Understanding the why matters now more than ever. What do you think is driving these protests? Let me know in the comments. If you want more deep dives, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.